I'm Brian Kelley. I've been a part of ag technologies, or started ag technologies in the early 2000s. The concept of ag technologies really began in the late 90s with a group of growers that had some problems on the farm they wanted us to help address. So they asked me to go start evaluating some technologies that they had seen and heard about to see if it was viable for their farm operations. So in the early 2000s, I started really working a lot more with variable rate technology and then subsequently auto steer technology, helping growers to understand how it could really change their farming practices. Um, I've spent a number of years developing a team that has really understands how to educate and inform growers about that. And we have been working hard since the early days of our company to build on a mission statement that's to create an environment which enables our farmers to confidently adopt sophisticated technology tools. In the late 90s, early 2000s, there was an opportunity for precision agriculture to begin the adoption or the product development of auto steer. I looked at that opportunity when it was literally laughable. Farmers were not taking the technology serious. And in some cases, the discussions, when I say laughable, really was laughable talking with growers where they didn't only have the discussion, waste their time on the discussion. So we started taking and evaluated the opportunity and started sitting down with a couple of key growers and found out what those hot buttons were that could make that technology a reality for farm operations as a real tool that would help their farms. We had a lot to overcome in those early days of developing auto steer in the market. Now, fast forward to where we are today, precision agriculture is more mainstream. People understand there are innovative technologies in the market. And if you look at how we developed then from zero auto steers in the market, zero willingness to adopt the technology, to, on an annual basis, $10 and $12 million worth of sales in auto steers just in Georgia alone. Going from zero to that over the course of 5 to 6 years of market development, product development, that begins to tell you how someone that is technology focused or groups that are technology focused can begin to help unpack and organize customers' thoughts and get them really challenged on how they can change their operations. Because introducing these types of technologies is not just it's not just a basic introduction of here's a product, you need to purchase this. It is literally changing the grower's way of thinking and how they're going to farm. And that is what MagGrow is going to do. It's going to challenge farmers on spray. So if you go back and use that time of auto steer adoption as an analogy or best practice of how we develop that product into the market and how we're going to develop and how we're developing MagGrow into the market, it's the same. A lot of the principles are the same, with the exception that the barrier for adoption of just precision technologies today is less than it was in the early 2000s. Technology is real, it's perceived as a real tool. Now it's a matter of how we educate people on MagGrow and that they need to leverage these types of technology for spray. And in some cases, they need to understand they have issues in their spray that they might not even realize or recognize that they have. So some examples of how we're building the market, some examples of how we're beginning to seed the market is growers. The science is something that's got to be explained, it's got to be discussed, but grower to grower explanation and adoption of the technology is the key driver for a greater market adoption. If we can get our innovators to begin to talk to our early adopters and get these innovators bought in and then get them to start talking to these early adopters, that is what will begin to unlock that bigger mass market that is behind our early adopters. And everybody's been inside of the market development, product development markets and understand how this works. We're in that innovator phase. And we're literally targeting all these innovators that are going to seed every market. So for example, we are targeting a handful of crops from tomatoes to leafy vegetables or leafy greens, to row crops, cotton, peanuts. We are also targeting potatoes, strawberries, and inside of each one of those little fractured markets inside of our market area, we are planting the seed with those innovators inside of each one of those markets. That stage that we're in developing that, each one of those has had positive results from every one of the customer trials. Now, customer trials in some cases is a true water-sensitive paper, crop science study, customer signs off, they're good. In some cases, it's a much longer trial. Like, for example, we're working with a company called Pacific Tomato, one of the largest field growers of tomatoes in North America. That group is because of historical issues they've had with electrostatics and some failures internally inside their company that they're having to overcome. We're having to prove that product out over a couple of crop seasons, which in this case is going to take us about a year because they'll get a couple of crop seasons in that year. We're on the second crop season for them, and we will enter into the third this fall going into winter. That customer alone stands with just the one unit we have working on them, which we've invested in and put on this farm, is 40 plus systems on that one farm. Not to mention the waterfall effect that comes behind that potential customer. The first season they didn't reluctantly try the system. They open arm tried it, but again, they've had electrostatics. They kind of compared it to that, but they had a bunch of maintenance issues with the electrostatics. They saw positive results out of this one with zero maintenance issues. Fast forward to where we are today. They're in the middle of their fall crop. We're just getting into their harvest time when we start seeing the deltas or start seeing the differences between their conventional spray and the other. So the results are still pending on that one. But again, if I go through all of these crops and all the opportunities we have in each side of each one of those, from melons with Will Hyatt to row crops with Fate Spera on cotton, to Pacific Tomato in the tomato space, to Norton Creek on strawberries, each one of those has had and has documented positive results out of the technology, which again, waterfall effect for us or domino effect for us, you look at it as the lead domino, it's going to make all these others start to fall behind it. So we're in the innovator phase, moving into this early adopter will come over the course of this next 12 months, of which I feel like we'll get rapid adoption beyond where we are today. So one of the questions that's been asked to me is, what is one of the barriers? If I was really thinking through the barriers to adoption, and as a technology specialist that has been in this space for 20 plus years and helping farmers to understand how technology can really change their farm operations, we're always trying to identify the barriers that are in front of our growers for the reasons they're not adopting a particular technology. Auto steers was one thing, rate controllers was another. Each one of those technologies that we helped farmers begin to gain trust in, build plans for them, help them to understand how it could actually change their farm operations. When we did that, each one of those rendered a positive result. Well, as we get into MagGrow, I've been trying to evaluate really hard what is the barriers to adoption. And inside of each crop and inside of each area, some of it is chemical savings. Some of it is how they better utilize the sprayer. Some of it is how they get better efficacy out of the chemistry that they have available to them because their chemistry is limited. But all of them have a hot button that we found. But one of the biggest barriers that we found is in some cases them understanding the science behind spray in and of itself. There's so many misinformation in the market about spray. And there's a lot of science that exists, but it's almost treated more as an art. This farmer has a particular setup that he uses. He uses this nozzle with this volume of water and this chemistry mix, all of those things. And that happens by per crop and per farm. So every geography is a little different. So we're having to dial into some of those. That's probably one of our biggest barriers to overcome. I know with MagGrow, we've been working with them on creating some standards, some grower standards, some kind of market industry type standards for best practices on spray. I think that'll be huge to really help bring some of the mist or haze that's in front of this spray and take it out of the art and really bring it into the science and give farmers something that they can lean on. Like, here's some core principles of how spray can be done. And I think that'll bring us as technology providers, including of MagGrow, bring all of us as the MagGrow network of people into being the farmer's information source for best practices on spray. Subsequently, having MagGrow as a part of that equation will just make it that much better. So as I've said in earlier parts of this, market adoption and product development has rendered a lot of fun topics with growers, having discussions with them, and the science, how does it work question comes up all the time. And ultimately, at the end of the day, when we have growers start trying it, because we try to explain the science and we give it our best guess that we can, or best educated proposal that we can surrounding, or pitch that we can surrounding the science. But what we found is the best thing, just like I have with any other piece of technology, let's stop talking about the science, let's put it to work in the field, and you tell us how it works. So, for example, with one grower, with Fate Spera in South Georgia, of which you'll probably see one of the videos coming out soon, I think a statement that probably resonates the most with me is he told me one day, he said, Brian, this is the hardest
things to understand through a science standpoint, but it's the easiest thing to use.
And I think that quote in and of itself really sums up the MagGrow technology. Just as I said earlier, with every segment of our market, if you take Georgia's row crop, South Central Georgia's produce, East Georgia's vegetable and onion country, South Carolina along the coastline's produce, inner part of the state, broadacre crops, all the way down through Florida with all the different pockets of produce that it has, and then surrounding the bottom part of the lake where it has everything from sweet corn to sugar cane, and then go into the Carolinas and you have a whole breadbasket of a whole diversity of types of crops, from viticulture into tobacco to row crops and all that comes along with that. If you think through all of those markets and you think through what enables the fragmentation of those markets as far as spray technologies is concerned, you have to look at the OEMs and what farmers are using to actually apply those chemicals. So in our row crop markets, there's a lot of self-propelled sprayers. John Deere, Case, AGCO machines are all very popular machines in that. Very common machines that we can help on. We kind of understand those platforms. You get into the other crops, such as the produce guys, every one of those markets is dominated by a specialty sprayer for those markets. That goes back to my science discussion, or more of that art than science. If I look at how those markets have treated even their spray application rigs, it's the same thing as how they've treated their spray application processes, or their whole ecosystem of how they put chemicals and get chemicals on the crop. So looking at each one of those markets and seeing how fragmented just the OEM distribution is, just the spray distribution components are, that is where we, as the technology providers inside of these markets, can go to each one of those groups and work directly with them, especially a lot of the small OEMs. We're working with AirTech, for example. Getting on those small OEMs helps us to make those little smaller companies' product better. But it also helps us to address their little regional markets that they all represent. It helps us to unpack the science of how the spray technology can help their machinery better. And in some cases, we circumvent some of the big OEMs because they really have zero desire to do things like we've done for Fate. For example, one of the things we've done for Fate with his large sprayer, which is why the Case dealership there would not really want to promote the technology, is he had 2 Case sprayers, 2 large 120-foot boom sprayers, and because he went from 500 acres a day to 800 acres a day, he was able to eliminate a sprayer. So for them, they can't adjust their financial model enough to charge, they charge currently $300,000 for that machine. Well, they're not going to go charging $600,000 for it overnight. So for them, it's kind of a conflict of interest to really work with the product in a capacity that would help promote what MagGrow's capabilities are. Because we're increasing utilization of the machine, we're working after the farmer's best interest. I don't think I have to begin to tell anybody today that we're in interesting times as it relates to how we communicate with the markets, if we go directly to customers and all that. Farmers today still want us to come direct to them. They still want us to see them face to face. However, taking us to where we can be in more places, so when we go to a farm and we leave, that we can leave them with information, and then we can begin to communicate with them through different digital platforms such as educational videos about spray, and begin to give them the 101 on spray, and then educational information about MagGrow and start trickling that in, testimonials from other growers. All of those tools are going to be huge resources for us to begin to create brand awareness around MagGrow, increase product adoption, product awareness, and then product adoption with our innovators, and then subsequently take additional testimonials out of those innovators into our early adopters to begin to continue plowing forward inside of the market development, product development cycles or stages that we have to go through to ultimately get to that bigger market that we're after, that 80+% of the market. So if I was to go into the market development or product development needs of a digital platform and how we can take those tools and really begin to leverage those to put my team of experienced technologists, specialists that have been in the market to really multiply their value across the market, I don't know if I can put a price on that. I mean, I think today the value of me taking one of my guys, for example, that's been with me, that has a master's in business administration, has helped me develop 3 different product types in the market to help me bring them to the market and get customers comfortable with them and adopting those in a mass way. Taking that person, adding this piece of technology to them, of being able to bring all this new digital communication to them it'll be immensely valuable for me. Hopefully it'll short circuit the adoption timeline. So if we're talking about innovators this year and early adopters next, maybe we shrink that by 6 to 9 months. I think that would be our initiative. Our goal would be to do that. So these new videos and new media tools that MagGrow is working to provide with us are going to be immensely valuable. I don't even know something I can put a full dollar value on. As I said earlier, there's fragments across our markets. There's fragments across just the Southeast, from pockets of produce to strawberries to peaches to cotton, peanuts. If I look at cotton farmers in the Southeast, specifically Georgia and Florida and the Carolinas, if I look at strawberry growers here, I've had discussions with even some tomato growers here talking about experiences that were had on the West Coast and videos that we showed them out of customers using MagGrow on the West Coast. And it was almost dismissed as, well, that's the West Coast. They have different spray needs than we do. So if you begin to bring these experiences and this testimonials closer to home for all of these growers, potentially inside of their market area, their geography, their crop type for sure, it has to be inside of their crop type, that begins to bring it instantly more relatable for them. They begin to value the information, the testimonial of that particular grower, value the results that MagGrow is giving them more readily than they would if it's from a grower that's doing cotton or out in Mississippi or corn in the Midwest. The relevance to a grower that's planting tomatoes in South Florida of a guy planting tomatoes in California is 2 different markets, 2 different types. And we've found that if we can bring that testimonial much closer to the grower, where they're from, where they work from, in the market that they're in, the current environment that they're impacted by, it begins to bring to them market relevance, geographical relevance to the product that they're growing, to the tomatoes they're growing, because the environment that tomatoes are in Southeast, for example, is immensely different than that of ones that are being grown in California. A tomato grower here, cotton grower here, peanut grower here, any of these crops in the Southeast will tell you that they're confronted with much different pest and pest problems than other places are in the nation. So a question that gets asked to me is, one, why I've chosen to specifically focus on precision agriculture. I've been in other spaces. I've actually had interest in equipment manufacturing dealerships. I was part of a case dealership. I've had opportunities to work inside of other OEMs, other groups. I've had opportunity to solicit our products in and through tractor groups, sprayer organizations. We've elected not to, for the purposes of it allows for us to really go after what that technology's ultimate goal is. The ultimate goal of the technology, for example, MagGrow, if I go back and use the FATE reference or the FATE quote, when he actually was able to eliminate a sprayer from his farm operation, that allows for us to take a $40,000 piece of technology and eliminate a $300,000 sprayer from his farm. That math does not work for a tractor manufacturer, spray group. So when you begin to look at those kind of pieces, that's the things that allows for me to keep our initiatives, our goals as technology specialists, really technology consultants, to help go after what the technology's ultimate goal is to go after, which is to make that farm, optimize that farm production practices for that farmer. Equipment guys have a different goal and different agenda. They have a goal of selling the sprayer, selling the tractor. And if I look through and think about those initiatives and being a part of those and understanding that different agenda, we're motivated by two different things. I seek my existence on a farm operation today through bringing value of cost reduction on chemicals, cost reduction on optimizing sprayer utilization so that he gets more hours of spray, in-field spray operations out of his sprayer. We get more value to the farm. That brings more value to us, to that farmer, which ultimately is why MagGrow going in and through technology dealers such as us, the Trimble network, or technology dealers around the world, they're going to find a better product adoption long term and in the near term than they would if they go through bigger OEMs, spray manufacturer groups, because our motivations are more aligned with what MagGrow's intentions are. So I've talked through a number of items about MagGrow and the product development and the stages that we're in. If you think back through kind of clarifying some of the pieces around the stages and really kind of bringing each one of these pieces of the discussion together, if you think about the product development stages that we're in, say innovators in this early stage of innovators really looking at the technology and beginning to adopt it, and you think about the right persons for that job or these product specialists, these people that are used to bringing disruptive technologies that are truly going to disrupt the way a farmer farms, challenge him on thinking about how he's going to change his farming practices, in this case, change his spray practices, which is in a lot of cases can be a very hard discussion to have with growers, because farmers look at their spray operation as they don't want to change anything because they might not see the result of that spray change until the end of the crop, and it could be negative. So they go with what they've known, they go with what they've done, and they make less changes in that area of their business, or they make those changes much slower than they do in other areas of their business. So that is a barrier. If I go back through kind of tying all these topics that we've talked about together, we're in the early stage with innovators. We have a barrier of adoption that spray operations are almost, in some cases, mystical, or just farmers don't understand all the science that goes into it. Sometimes they understand the chemistry, sometimes they understand the droplets, but for the most part, spray application processes and how they're going to get the chemical applied is done so differently across so many different farms. A lot of times it was more volume of product to the plant. In some cases it's less. Just depends on the farm you're with, the crop you're working through, and the chemistry you're applying. So if I think about the innovators working with product specialists, the value of having a product specialist really communicating MagGrow to a grower and complementing what that product specialist value to you as MagGrow owners, as MagGrow investors is, product specialists are ones that are going to be able to be people that will challenge change to happen on the farm. They've gained and earned the respect of growers to begin to change their operations on adapting auto steer, so letting go of the steering wheel. Now, going back to another piece on auto steer adoption, it's fairly quick and easy to see. We put an auto steer on, guy saw straight lines, plus he saw it match up on his field. It wasn't that began to educate growers, and it was all about dependability and who they were going to depend on to make that technology work. So if you think about auto steer, it was much easier for them to see an instant result, much harder for them to have the dependability or put the dependency on a person that's never provided them service before, like one of these product specialists we're talking about. But if you think through how MagGrow has the barrier of adoption of people not understanding the technology, maybe not wanting to accept and adopt change in their spray operations, but then you begin to look through how it has less service after the sale, we begin to kind of balance out those barriers to adoption. So harder to understand on the front end, much easier to use on the back end. That's a quote that Fate Sparrow said. Thinking through the value of product specialists in this early stage of innovators adopting and bringing that educating, bringing that change to their operations, challenging them on changing their spray operations. There's a lot more effort, some 10x, or you could put different statistics on or different numbers on it, of effort that goes into these early sales. We're at that hardest point that we should ever be at in really getting penetrated into the market. If we can once we get these innovators, and we will, as we're working through bringing each one of these innovators on board with us as customers, they begin to be change agents helping other farmers to understand the value of that technology. So for me, as a product specialist that's done this before, that's had the opportunity to sell one system, get that customer excited about it on an auto steer almost 20 years ago, sell that second system, and then lay out a plan for getting the next 10 on, and then using each one of those groups of 10 that I was selling as a multiplier, going from 2 the first year, actually 3 that first year, to 10 the following season, to 50 the following, to 100 and something the next, watching that true growth of our business. We've been there. I have team members that are experienced in doing this in a lot of specialist groups, such as dealers in the Mid-South, dealers on the West Coast area, or up in the specifically the Pacific Northwest, have done this before with bringing new emerging technologies to these growers. And if I begin to think through that extra effort that it takes to get those early products out, the excitement I start to get is really beginning to see these first ones happen, because I'm now looking beyond these first few we're putting out. I'm looking at what does it take to get the next 20, because I know that next 20 is going to unlock the door to that following adoption. Then the numbers in that for our region alone, I've seen numbers and stats run. We've kind of qualified that as north of 115 to 120 million worth of opportunities in our total market area. At this point, the amount of that opportunity that we're able to gain access to is going to be how well and we execute today, leveraging the digital tools that MagGrow is looking to bring us, the videos we're looking to put out, the more innovators that we get on board at this point in time, how well we educate on best management practices around spray, bringing each one of these building blocks together that we have been, that we understand how to do and have done in previous products that we brought to the market. But again, wash, rinsing, and repeating that same process we've done in the past with the very different and its own set of challenges and figuring those out for MagGrow. And as we bring those products to it, how do we really begin to shrink that time frame down, leveraging these digital technologies leveraging the product specialists that we already have, that already have experience in this, leveraging our brand awareness that we already have, that customers already look at us as change agents, bringing technology to them. And if I think back through our mission statement as a company, and our customers developed our mission statement, we didn't. We just get to live it out and execute it. Our organization is built around a mission of bringing complex technology tools to growers. We create an environment which enables our farmers to confidently adopt sophisticated technology tools. Our growers created that need. We understood the need, and then they helped us develop our business around that by fostering our organization through investing in our team, investing in the products we brought to them, and having confidence in us to bring them the right products to their operations. As a business owner and an entrepreneur that has staked his career and spent the past 20 plus years of figuring out ways to meet the challenges of bringing new farm-changing technologies to growers, to get them to understand how it works, how it could potentially change their farm and the way they farm today, it's been a long time since I've had the level of excitement around a product that I do with MagGrow. When I look back at the early days of auto steer and rate controllers and variable rate technology for fertilizer applications, all of those were big step changes in how we changed farming. They had huge impacts on how growers farmed, how many tractors they needed, the level of operator training they had to have, how well they were able to apply their seed and their fertilizer to the field. All of those things were game-changing technologies. You begin to wonder if there's any other innovation that's really out there until we get to autonomy and other things that are coming in the future of agriculture, and you begin to worry that there might not be other game-changing technology on the farm that we can present to these growers. And when I started looking at spray operations and best ways to help farmers optimize their spray practices, and we were evaluating a whole suite of spray tools from rate controllers to every tip control on spray, to how fast we load the sprayers using technologies like Surefire's quick draw system, and then the reporting on the back end and how we automated our EPA reports, those types of things. As we started looking at that, we realized there was still an opportunity in how well we optimize the farmer's spray application of the chemicals, the efficacy of that. There's an issue with our farmers today of chemical and chemistry that's available to them. There's not a lot in the pipeline. So when we identified that opportunity, and we were looking around the market, and we stumbled really across MagGrow and begin to evaluate that technology a few years back, we really begin to see and understand. We don't even understand the complexities and the full science of how this works. We begin to see, though, that fit into the problems that we were evaluating for our growers as an opportunity to address those problems. The real excitement for us is in these early stages of market development and the daily conversations I get to have with growers, like I just did a few minutes ago with Fate Sparrow, talking with him about how well it's helped on farmers in Mississippi with their defoliation. At a 75% rate, did better than 100% on the conventional application. Those conversations begin to drive excitement around how we, as product specialists, technology adoption specialists, people that have really helped growers to begin to understand how technology can work for them, that begins to drive excitement for us. It begins to get real exciting when you start looking at it from an entrepreneur, from a business person's standpoint as well, at the financial opportunity that we're building towards. And it makes me anxious and lose a lot of sleep at night about how fast we can get there. We're working diligently every day with a team that has done this before, that has put time and energy into other products in the past, understands the complexities of and nuances that go into bringing a product that has some headwinds against it, because chemical companies don't want this to be successful. Tractor companies really don't want this to be successful either. They want to sell the sprayer. There's a lot of resistance to the unknowns about the science behind this technology. But if we can overcome, and we will overcome all of those barriers to adoption through education to our growers, understanding the science of spray better, getting the understanding of how other growers have seen it work on the farms through testimonials, just product and brand awareness. Each one of those things is going to help us to get these innovators in the door, get those pieces behind us, really begin to get those early adopters on board, which we all know that have done product development before, is the key to unlocking the greater business opportunity that's in front of us. So over the next couple of years, we're going to have a lot of exciting times in building out this product of MagGrow into the market. And I look forward personally as a business owner of working alongside the MagGrow team and as a part of that team and as the extension of that team in North America to help bring that product to our growers.